had so much fun hiking with you last time. I thought we could go again. This time, let's take a look at some gigantic rocks and some of the stuff that's left over from when people were mining here on Ruffner Mountain. Let's go. Here we are at the trailhead again. We're going to be kind of all over the place today on lots of different trails, so let's just take a quick look at the map and see some of the spots we're going to go. First, we're going to be on the Geology Trail, which is this gray one right here. Pretty short, and we're only going to go partway down it. And then we're going to head out on the Quarry Trail, this one, which will take us up and over the mountain. And we're going to take some little side jaunts along the way, but I'll let you know about those when we get there. And here we are, the Geology Trail. You probably already know that geology is all about rocks. So this trail has some really cool rocks on it. First, we're gonna see the one that the Ruffner people tell me is a field trip favorite. All right, let's go. If you've ever been to Ruffner Mountain before, I bet you've been to Turtle Rock. Any idea why it's called that? That's right, it's shaped like a turtle. See, here's the head, right there. And that's the shell. And I guess its arms and legs are up inside the shell right now. So this thing is made of a type of rock called limestone. And it didn't always look like a turtle. It actually took millions of years of erosion to look like this. And a million years from now, it'll probably look a lot different. You know what I like to do at Turtle Rock? Ride on the turtle's back! Now let's hit the Quarry Trail. This will take us up and over the top of the mountain. Do you remember from our last hike how we can know that we're on the right trail? That's right. We're going to follow the marks on the trees called blazes. And for this trail, we're going to be following the white blazes. So keep an eye out for those, okay? All right. There's one. So here's a sign for the Crusher Trail. Crusher. Even if you don't know what that means, it sounds pretty cool. But it's even cooler when you do know what the Crusher is. So we're gonna leave the Quarry Trail and head down the Crusher Trail for just a little bit. You ready? We're heading down to the Crusher, and it's way down at the bottom of a valley. And I can just see the top of it from here. You see it? You wanna guess how big you think it might be? I'm getting closer. Here's another view. Would you like to guess again? Okay, here we are. We have arrived at the Crusher. Bum, bum, bum. Now, before we talk about the Crusher, though, I want to talk about the dirt. Bum, bum, bum. You might notice that the dirt here is red. What? There you go. You see? Under the water, out of the water. It's just really red. Do you know why it's red? It has to do with this Crusher. If you thought it was because of iron, you are right. Ding, ding, ding. Iron gives things a reddish color. In fact, it's a lot like the color of rust. Have you ever seen something rusty? And the reason is because rust is iron in a chemical reaction with oxygen and water. So this is rusty colored because it's the same stuff that rust is made of. And what does that have to do with the Crusher? Well, rocks that have a lot of iron in them are called iron ore. And that is what people were looking for when they came to Ruffner Mountain to dig mines. They dug down into the ground looking for iron ore, and this crusher is where all those rocks that they dug out would go to be crushed into smaller pieces and to get out some of the stuff that was not iron. Alright, let's talk about the crusher. We'll take a little tour. I'm standing on the ground at the bottom. Here are my feet. So you can see that I'm looking up at it because it's really tall. That round part is where the rocks that got dug out of the mines would be dumped into the crusher. And then in this square part in the middle, there's a piece missing. It would have had a big wheel that spun and turned to crush the rocks. And then that crushed stuff would have gotten dumped out into a cart, probably right here. And you see all those rocks that are making a little trail? That's probably where the railroad tracks were, and they were tracks to carry carts. And I'll give a look the other way. There's a trail that I'm standing on, and it goes that way as well. This is probably where the tracks were laid for the cart to run on. And those carts would go all the way down those tracks and back up the mountain and over it and out to Sloss furnaces. I tell you what, let's go over here to the side of the crusher and I'll show you there are some stairs here. And I think that it's always a good idea to go up some stairs when you see them. A lot of people don't, because climbing stairs is not easy. But there's usually something pretty cool to see at the top of the stairs if you do it. So let's see. Look at that. This is the other side of the crusher. Let's go under there and see what we see. This is where the stuff would have come out when it was crushed, right here. And then would have gotten dumped onto a cart. Alright, now let's see. Do you hear my voice has changed a little bit? That's because it's echoing some. I am now inside the crusher. I'm looking up at the hole where I believe the iron ore rocks would have been dumped in order to get crushed. Lots of little insect nests around the inside of this. And then I can look out carefully, because I'm high up, and see that trail that I was just standing on where the railroad tracks probably were to take the carts out. There are lots of ways to make big things turn into small things, but the way that this crusher worked was by a wheel that spun to grind things into smaller bits. Maybe some of you have parents who buy coffee beans and they use a coffee grinder to grind those beans up into the coffee that they use to make their cup of coffee. It's loud when they do that, isn't it? And this works the same way, but times a zillion. It's grinding up rocks. Can you imagine how loud that must have been when it was running? Now I came up the stairs and there was the crusher at the top. But if I turn the other way from the stairs, I can go up even further. Let's see what's up there. You know what I think we've come across? I think we've come across the entrance to a mine. Let's investigate. Oh yeah, this is definitely where a mine was dug. You see all those layers? You can really see how deeply the miners dug down to get to the iron ore seam, or the place where a whole bunch of iron ore was in the rock. We'll talk more about layers a little bit later on. Let's see about the entrance to this mine. Oh yeah, there it is. I'm going to be very careful because I'm on a steep slope or a downhill. And actually that's why this kind of mine is called a slope mine. Because it was dug down a slope into the ground. And they would dig down deep into the ground because they'd found a seam of iron ore and go way back into the earth to get it all out, or at least as much as they could. This gravel is a little slippery. That's why we're going slowly. Now, these bars are here for a couple reasons. One is that it's not really safe to go inside the mines anymore, so they don't want people to do that, and we're not going to try. And also, bats live in here, and they've been getting a disease called white nose syndrome, which can kill the bats. And it can spread if people get it on their shoes and take it out to other places. And we don't want the bats. We don't want to spread that disease, so we're not going to go in there. That's another reason for the bars. You know all about trying not to spread disease, don't you? But we can look through them. Let's see what we see down here. Oh, yeah. Can you hear that dripping? This is way down into the mine. You can't see it because of all the mud that's covering it up, but on the ground there are some tracks that go down into the mine, and that's where the carts went down and came back up full of iron ore rocks. Cool. You don't know this because you're watching this on video, but if you were using your sense of touch, you would notice that right here next to the mine, it's actually a lot cooler than it is up at the top of the hill because of the air coming from underground out of the mine. That air is a lot lower in temperature. Just take a second to imagine what it was like to work in a mine. You're underground all day. It's pretty dark. You don't see the sunshine. It's dirty. It's hard, hard work. And you really don't get paid much at all. Being a miner was and is a very difficult job. I don't know about you, but I love learning about the history of all the stuff that happened on this mountain. And I love seeing the ruins of all the mining operations that were here. I even get excited about the small stuff, like this pile of bricks that was probably part of the system that moved mining carts from one place to another. And test pits like this, which are smallish, biggish holes in the ground where people would start to dig to look for an iron ore seam, but then not actually make a mine. It's all interesting to me. Speaking of holes in the ground, let's get back to our trek to the quarry, which is probably the city's biggest hole in the ground. All right, and here we are back at the quarry trail. So let's keep going. Now, if you're paying close attention, you'll notice this sign looks different from the one where we went down to see the crusher. Oh, that's right. I came back up a different way. But let's go down the quarry trail. Okay, we've reached the end of the quarry trail, and now we're at a little intersection called Gray Fox Gap. And there are a lot of choices of where we can go from here. Let's see what it looks like on the map. Alright, we are here. See all the different options? Okay, what we're going to do is take this red trail, the Overlook Trail, and just like it sounds, it's going to take us to a spot where we can get a nice view of the quarry. That's what those little binoculars mean on the map. Alright, to Overlook. This way. Wow, that was a short trail, but it was a steep climb. But here we are now, at the Cambrian Overlook, and this is the place to see down into the quarry. But before we look at the grand view, I want to show you something about the ground here. It's kind of strange, isn't it? It's probably like this because of polluted rain. Over time, rain that comes down that has acid in it can actually eat away at the rock and make it have strange patterns like this, that it's really bumpy. It's pretty cool, huh? Okay, now let me show you the quarry. Pretty impressive, right? This big hole was dug by machines and people to take out a type of rock called limestone. It's the same thing that turtle rock is made of. And limestone, just like that red iron ore we saw earlier, is one of the ingredients used to make pig iron. That's why all this stuff got carted over to Sloss furnaces. That limestone and iron ore would get heated up super, super hot to make pig iron. And that pig iron was used to make steel, which is a really strong material used in buildings and cars and railroads and bridges and even paper clips. Now that you've seen the quarry from up top, you ready to get down inside it and look around? Let's head back to Gray Fox Gap and we'll see if we can find a way in. Here we are again, and the Possum Loop Trail is going to take us right by the entrance to the quarry. Now, this is the longest trail at Ruffner Mountain. So if we miss the entrance to the quarry, we're going to have a long way to go before we loop back around. So I need you to help me keep an eye out for the sign. It's a little bit off the trail. Shout out when you see it, okay? And don't let me pass it. Whew, that was close. I'm sure glad I have you to show me where to go. And you're right, this is the way into the quarry. Here's another sign. This tells us that anything we find in the quarry, we should leave in the quarry. So we're gonna use our senses to observe stuff, but we're not gonna move it all around. That's kind of a good rule to follow just anytime you're hiking. All right, let's go. Does this look familiar? It looks really different from here than it did from the overlook, doesn't it? All these rocks around us are limestone. And you can see that a lot of plants and trees and wildflowers have started to grow here too, since mining operations stopped. These rocks and plants are home to a whole lot of critters too. You never know what you'll see in the quarry. Here's another view. I've come across it and climbed up the other side a little bit. There's somebody hiking. And way up high there is where we were standing just now. There's the overlook. Well, it took a lot of walking around and just looking, using my eyeballs, but I finally found a spot with a fossil or two. Check this out. Can you see right there? Let me zoom in a little. This is rock, but the shape is where a shell used to be. There's another little one, and here's one that's bigger. So cool. Look, here's some more shapes. I'm not sure what these would have been, but definitely something was here when these rocks were formed. And maybe here? It's hard to tell. What about that right there? And maybe this shape? Check this one out. Let's get the magnifying glass in there. Wow. That is so cool. I wonder what made that shape millions of years ago. And that's the quarry. Now the other stuff I want to show you is way at the far other end of Ruffner. So we're just gonna magic ourselves over there. You ready? 1, 2, 3. We've just arrived at a short loop called Sandstone Ridge. Now sandstone, aside from limestone, is one of the main rocks you'll find here at Ruffner. And both of them are sedimentary rocks. And also iron ore is found in sedimentary rock. So maybe we should kind of like figure out what sedimentary rock is. Sedimentary rock is rock that forms in layers. Over millions and millions of years, little bits of stuff get moved around and they settle on top of other little bits of stuff in layers. With each new layer that forms, the weight that's pressing down on the lower layers is heavier and heavier. So it's pressing all the layers together. And after a whole lot of time passes, all those layers, even though you can still see them, become one rock. Sedimentary rock. You want to see it? The truth is, this whole time we've been seeing sedimentary rock. All those layers of red that we saw by the mine entrance, that was sedimentary rock with iron ore in it. And the quarry is full of layers. In fact, this picture you're looking at now is a rock of limestone from the quarry. It's turned sideways, so one side of it's going to be older layers, and then they'll move to newer layers on the other side. All right, let's look at another sedimentary rock, sandstone. These cliffs are made up of sandstone, and you may not be able to see the layers from here, but the parts on the bottom are going to be the oldest layers. That's the stuff that settled first. And then, as you go higher up the rock, it gets newer and newer and newer with each layer. But still, it's all very, very old. Sandstone! Okay, we're at our last stop on this tour of Ruffner's Rocks and Mines. Now, right here, we're pretty far from the Nature Center, which is kind of that way. And we're pretty close to one of Ruffner's back entrances that way. What I want you to see here is another crusher! This one is a lot bigger than the other one, and it also still has some of the parts that were missing in the other one, like this wheel here. It doesn't spin anymore. engine to turn it. And the engine used to live just down on the other side of the crusher. It's not there anymore. So right up the hill, iron ore came out of the mine, and then it went even higher up the hill on a track, and then it switched tracks and rolled down into the top of this thing. And then it went all the way through. It got ground up into little bits and then put into another cart where it was taken down to the furnaces on another railroad track to make pig iron. Come sit with me. I want to tell you a story about something that happened at this spot 50 years ago in 1971. So it was a Sunday evening in July. And there was a guy here checking on some stuff that his company stored here, and he noticed some flames. So he called the fire department. But before the firefighters could get here, there was a giant explosion. But that was just the first one. Then, after that, there was the big one. 20 tons of chemicals that were stored in a mine just past the crusher here exploded. People could hear and see it for 5 miles away. That's like if you were shopping at the Summit and you heard or saw an explosion at the library. Speaking of the library, can you picture like how tall it is? Because that's how deep the hole in the ground was from that explosion. The blast busted out people's house windows and it sucked their garage doors back into their garages, and it caused a heat wave for miles around. It's truly amazing that no one died. The chemical that exploded was stored in these blue plastic tubes. So if you're lucky, when you're out here hiking around the site where the blast happened, you might actually find a piece of plastic that came from one of those tubes. Now, if you have a grandparent who grew up in Birmingham, give them a call. Ask them if they remember the 1971 explosion at Ruffner Mountain. And you might be surprised. They may have a good story to tell you. Well, that's it. That's another virtual field trip to Ruffner Mountain. Next time we're going to see if we can spot some of the critters that call this mountain home. And until then, stay safe and pay attention. You never know what you might discover, even in places that you've been a million times.
Okay, and go.
Forgot my line.
Video, so I didn't have it right. Can you tell when I'm videoing? Is there like a light on?
Nope.
Okay.
Are you filming? Here.
Get away from me. Oh yeah, this is good.
And here we are at the trailhead again. So let's take a look at, nope, just keep rolling.